If you run a B2B business with a small team, you've probably been to a BNI meeting. Some people love it, others call it a cult. I spent 3 years as a member, and I even became a chapter president 1 year as well. But 4 months ago, I decided to quit BNI and go all in on LinkedIn. In this video, I'll show you who BNI really works for and why LinkedIn might be your smarter play for 2026 if you're a B2B service business owner like me. So what is BNI? BNI stands for Business Network International. So the whole concept is around joining a group of professionals with seat exclusivity. So that means that when you join this group, there is only one mortgage broker, one accountant. At least that's the way it is in theory. In practice, it can be a little bit different. What's really good at is it gamifies referral-based marketing and word-of-mouth marketing, which, as we all know, is the highest converting type of business development. And when you get it, it is awesome. But what's really important to note about BNI is it's a 40-year-old organization. It predates LinkedIn by about 17 years and is certainly a lot older than the modern forms of social media, which a lot of businesses use these days to great effect for their business. Now, one of the biggest misconceptions about BNI is you look at the room and be like, oh, those people in the room aren't my clients. That is not the way to think about it. It is very much an organization or a group that you join and you sell through the people in the room rather than to the people in the room. So you'll notice that a lot of their marketing paraphernalia will say, you know, you're going to get high quality referrals because it's not about who's in the room, but who they know and who their clients are. And the whole shtick is that, you know, you have essentially a sales and marketing team of 20, 30, 40 people who are going out and selling for you in between the events, so long as you practice their trademark giver's gain philosophy, which a lot of successful business owners have anyway. You know, the law of reciprocity is very powerful. It's what makes BNI work so well. But while this sounds like a really nice soundbite, the reality is a bit more nuanced than what you're led to believe in a BNI event. And it's heavily dependent on 5 factors. So one is the contact sphere size and strength. So each group is broken up into contact spheres, which are basically groups of complementary professionals who have the same end client, but serve in different ways. They're never competing or overlapping. So an example of that might be an accountant and a financial planner, perhaps a commercial lawyer. All 3 of those have really high value skills to wealthy people who have businesses. And the 3 of those can work really well together to generate referrals for one another because they're seeing the same end client. Another factor is your bandwidth to attend other chapters as a guest. So when you join a group or a chapter as it's called, the idea is that's your home group. But once you've settled, you can actually go to other groups. And that's where you end up when you start building those relationships in other groups. That's where you get a lot of outside referrals. And for many people, especially if they're good at what they do, outside referrals, so people who aren't in your group but are still BNI members, they end up becoming quite a significant portion of the overall BNI revenue. But of course, you have to make the effort to go to those other groups. And you also need the time to be able to do that. The third factor is the quality of your one-to-one conversations. So you get training around how to educate people around what are good referrals for your business. But if you're not having those quality one-to-ones, you're not going to have quality referrals. The fourth element for success is the geography of your work. So where you operate. Other geographies are more successful than others. So you'll typically find in metropolitan areas, there's a lot more work being passed in city or CBD locations versus those in regional areas. And also the kind of work you do dictate how much work you get as well. There's different types of businesses that do really well inside of BNI, and I'm going to talk to them in a minute. But I'd love to know if you've been to BNI or you are a member or you've been a member. Are there any other things that I'm missing off this list that you'd perhaps add? Let me know in the comments below. So now I'm going to talk about my personal experience as a BNI member for those 3 years. And when I joined, I was less than a year in business. So I was a really new business owner and I found it massively valuable. I learned heaps. I made great friends, people that I'm still really close with to this day. It was awesome. The training that you're given as well is seemingly unlimited, which is great if you're someone who likes to learn new things like I do, but it can be a bit overwhelming and overbearing at times if you're someone who doesn't really like to learn new things. It's a global community as well. So if you meet a fellow BNI member, they could be in the US, they could be in the UK, you just instantly click with that person because you know that you've all been trained in a certain way in that group dynamic. And I think that if you're in any way good at what you do and you sell a high ticket service, so what I mean by high ticket is anything that is over, say, $5,000, you'll absolutely make your dollar investment back, because typically, depending on the region you're in, when you factor in the membership, the joining fee, and the ongoing venue fees that in-person venues tend to have, you're looking at anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 Australian dollars. Now that might be different in your jurisdiction, but it's a pretty low amount as it relates to a year's worth of membership. So making the dollars back, not an issue at all. So who is it particularly good for? Well, in my opinion, BNI is particularly good for B2C leaning businesses like trades and property related businesses in particular, especially here in Australia, where property is basically like the most important asset class. Essential business services do really well as well. So these are people like accountants, lawyers, IT, services that most businesses really, it's not nice to have for a lot of these businesses, it's a must. And also business owners on either extreme of their career. So in my instance, I was really green and really new in my career when I first joined as a business owner. So I really enjoyed learning by osmosis about all these different parts of business from professionals who are stronger in areas that I'm weak at. So for example, I am shockingly bad at bookkeeping and cost control and all of that sort of accounting type skill set. So being able to be friends with people and just be able to ask casual conversations is really, really valuable. Now the other extreme is a business owner who you've got your team, you're sort of semi-retired and you've got the bandwidth to go to these groups every week and socialize and make sure that you're delivering on your power of one capabilities. People with no interest in content or outreach and who really strongly prefer face-to-face. Not all business owners want to be creating content. An even smaller number than that want to be doing outreach to try and find their ideal client. So if that's not a bit of you, is never going to be a bit of you, and you really like that face-to-face element, then BNI is awesome, because you really start to develop really deep and very lucrative relationships over, the months and years that you are a member. And finally, people who want to be better speakers. So literally every week you're getting up and you're pitching your business and you're needing to think about and articulate your message in a way that will resonate with people who aren't specialists in your industry. So, accountants, for example, I keep using those as an example, but they work with a lot of technical terms and a lot of terms that go over people who aren't digits minded. They really have to think about how they're explaining complex things in a really easy way. And for those who want to get better at public speaking, perhaps get speaking opportunities, it provides a really great stage to practice that skill. Now, who it's not for. So low ticket businesses. So this is for people, if the client value is less than $500, the math just will not work for the time that you're putting in my opinion. So for example, if your average client, paying client, is only worth $500 to you, let's say it's $5,000 for your dollar investment alone, that means that you need 10 converted clients to be able to break even. Then you have to factor in, if you put a dollar value on my time, which I do, it can be a very expensive endeavor when you factor in your time. In my opinion, I think that a business owner who's a B2B business owner, they need to be making $200,000 plus for that to be a worthwhile investment. And that leads on to my next point, which is sophisticated B2B businesses who sell to large enterprise. So if your buying decisions are made by committee, and you might be waiting a very long time to get an introduction to move a deal forward, and that time might be better spent just going directly to the precise people that you're looking to speak to. And then finally, founders who have 8 and 9 figure aspirations. And this might be controversial, you simply cannot get there. And when I say 8 or 9 figures, I'm meaning 10 million, 100 million plus ambitions. You're not going to get there because BNI has such a significant commitment on time that you're going to be splitting your focus from driving those businesses forward. It's a different story if you have, a team that you can delegate that to. But generally, it works better when the business owner is involved in my group and not an employee. So it's very rare that you would find, Alex or Leila Hormozi, Cody Sanchez, Gary Vee, Dan Martell. There's a reason that none of these highly successful content creator business people, they're not going to be attending for that reason, that they're investing their time elsewhere, which is why I have switched to focusing purely on LinkedIn and those digital mediums. I still have, I run an in-person event because I think in-person is so powerful. But I think combining the two is really going to be the way to win in 2026 and beyond. So here's why I think it might be better for you to focus on LinkedIn in 2026. So unlike when BNI started back in 1985, you now have a free to use platform that allows you to find exactly the person you need and connect with them right away. This is something I'd do before my one-to-ones. I'd look at the second degree connections who had common connections with the person I was meeting with. And I was able to literally say, I need an introduction to this person or this person. And that's a pro tip if you're considering joining BNI, is look at the members who are in your contact sphere. So for example, if you're a videographer, you might have a marketer. Marketing sphere is sort of your contact sphere. So look at who is in marketing in that group and then look at who their connections are and see, right, yes, all of these people are potential good referrals for your business. Another point is around metrics. So a lot of the metrics that you have to put into, like I love numbers and it's great being able to track them, but you have to manually put in almost everything yourself. So you need to manually put in the thank you for closed business. So when you receive business, you need to manually go and put that in. You need to manually put in what referrals you've given that week, who you've met with that week. Whereas with LinkedIn, all those numbers that you can easily track and see your performance, they're just there. They're done for you. So my worst all-time performing LinkedIn post, of the hundreds of LinkedIn posts that I must have now published, it got 79 impressions and it reached 36 LinkedIn members. So my worst ever post in terms of metrics reached around the same amount of people that is usually at a BNI event. But my all-time best post, however, got 32,995 impressions and reached 20,975 members. So spending time mastering content has a much higher potential upside for the future. Now, my business isn't geographic dependent, and if yours isn't, that's something to consider as well. So BNI is really good for local business because all the businesses are, local small business owners. But if you can serve anyone anywhere, the activity that you do to grow your business needs to be something that has that potential. Now, of course, BNI is a global organization and you can connect with other people internationally, but it's that little bit harder. And in my opinion, if you're going to connect with someone internationally, you don't need to be a BNI member to do that. You can just have those conversations on LinkedIn, because either way, you're not going to know that person internationally, most likely. You're not going to bump into them at one of the local events. And the biggest of all is the time leverage that you get from LinkedIn. So when you attend a BNI chapter event every week, getting ready, travel time, that's about an hour and a half. It's an hour and a half for the event itself. You've an hour of coffee chat before and after the event. There's 1 hour of learning every week, 1 to 2 hours of one-to-ones, and 1 to 2 hours of volunteering to keep the chapter running. Because that's the other part as well to BNI, is it's all member run. So running your own business, there's an expectation, and don't get me wrong, it's not like you have a permanent job. These jobs recycle, but you have to share the load to make sure that the chapter works effectively. All up, I'd spend 7 to 15 hours per week on BNI to get maybe 1 to 2 referrals every month. Now I spend maximum 1 hour per day in my home office on LinkedIn, making daily content and speaking directly to potential clients using the outreach system that I built. The key difference is published content continues to work at building trust while you sleep. You don't need to be physically present in a room to be able to utilize the platform. BNI is completely different. You literally have to go to the room and show up week after week to get the visibility you need, to build the trust, to get the referrals. Now, don't get me wrong, I loved my time at BNI. A lot of what I learned in BNI can be applied on LinkedIn to great effect, especially when I'm connecting with potential referral partners through LinkedIn. It makes it much easier, and I'm getting a much better return for my investment. Had I not joined BNI and got that foundational knowledge, would I be effective on LinkedIn? I don't know. Now, if you want to learn how you can easily voice dictate your ideas into a LinkedIn post so you can be super efficient at reaching your ideal client, watch this video next, where I give you my exact system to draft a post in 2 minutes and 3 clicks of a button on your iPhone. See you there. Bye.